Okay, so now is the good stuff. Today we have a trio of successful women contractors who are going to share their insight and perspective on what it takes to be a women-owned contractor in today's market. We're going to discuss several issues today that deal with challenges women have in breaking into a male-oriented industry. And when you hear about these women and their companies, we hope you will gain some insight as to what they did to accomplish their goals in becoming successful women business owners. Like I mentioned in the beginning, we do want to assure you that there will be time for questions and answers at the end of the panelist discussion. So we'll get through as many questions that we have ready to go here today until there's about 10 or 15 minutes left, and then we'll jump to questions from the audience. So I would like to start by asking each one of these women to introduce herself and tell us a little bit about her company and maybe what it's like to run a construction company on a typical day. Juliana, do you want to kick us off?
I'd love to. Thank you, Taylor. Hi, everybody. My name is Juliana Choi Summer. I'm the president and founder of Priority Architectural Graphics. We are a signage manufacturing and installation company with headquartered here in the Bay Area. Our headquarters are in San Francisco and Silicon Valley. We hold a C61D42 license, and we manufacture and install signage for multifamily housing, for the transportation sector, government infrastructure, and all types of corporate real estate. I've been in business for about 29 years, so heading into our 30th year in business. And I started as a sole proprietor. It was just myself, and we've grown since 1995 through today to really be proud of a lot of different types of projects for those sectors that I named above. It's a very exciting time to have grown as a women-owned company in the Bay Area. There've been a lot of opportunities, and there continue to be a lot of opportunities for growth. But there have been challenges, and it's a tough and lonely place to be at times. So excited to engage in this panel today and talk more about how the last several decades of being a female business owner in the construction industry have been.
Thanks, Juliana.
And I'll go next. My name is Q Alicia, and I'm the founder of Q&A Consulting LLC. We're a San Francisco-based environmental firm and our primary focus is environmental consulting, hazardous material building surveys, air quality, phase ones, sweep, safety program development, construction oversights, fit testing, compliance plans, and a lot more. And running an environmental firm such as Q&A Consulting involves a lot of things. So it involves me wearing many hats, juggling a lot of responsibilities. A typical day would be checking on lab results, overseeing reports that needs to go out, communicating with field technicians, and, just going over the previous proposals and things like that. Conducting site walks, pre-bid construction walks, just a lot of networking events and managing an influx of emails. Like that is like one of the things that, we deal with. I go to sleep thinking about emails. Even though it brings new challenges, we're excited because it's 3% African-American in my industry. So being a minority business owner in the environmental industry at this point right now is very exciting because the industry is kind of shifting, if you will. So anyways, thank you.
Thank you, Q. All right, Misha, we'll go to you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. Happy Women in Construction Week to everyone that's on the panel listening. Just want to shout you all out because you are all what makes the industry possible. A little bit about me is I am currently CEO and president of Tricor Panels. My father founded the company in 2012, and I joined him in 2014. And our big mission is to build a successful future together. And what I mean by that is, yes, we love fabricating and installing panels, but our main purpose here is to really create a space in the community for people to come together, to learn, and to see the opportunities that exist in this very lucrative industry that we love, construction. So we do have something that's really unique about us. Of course, we're women-owned, but we're vertically integrated. So we can design, we can help with different value engineering options. We have an in-house fabrication shop in Santa Clara, which we are able to cut and route 150 panels per day in our shop. And we have multiple sets of crews that install these panels all throughout the Bay Area. We're private owned. We work on private and prevailing wage projects. We do have partners when it comes to union projects. I'll talk more about the power of collaboration later. But yeah, just a little bit about us. We're having a really big event on Saturday to keep celebrating Women in Construction Week, which we'll share a little bit later, called Plant and Play. But super excited to be here. Thank you for having me back again. And yeah, let's get this party started.
Let's do it. Thank you, Misha. All right, so how the questions are going to work today, I'll be the moderator, and I have a list of questions here in front of me. I'm going to ask the questions, and then each one of our panelists can take turns answering that question. And I have told the panelists to please hop in if there's a specific question or topic that they'd like to cover that I'm not addressing. So we want this to be a real honest conversation here. So no bad questions. Okay, so I'm going to kick us off with, how have you managed discrimination or bias towards your firm in contract negotiations? And maybe Misha, why don't you go?
Yeah, I can start with that. Yeah, it's a great question. So I think when it comes to contracts and honestly any kinds of negotiations, issues are going to come up. I think it's really based on the conversation. So I think being able to build, relationships and partnerships, I always say, like, you don't want to be friends with everybody, right? So when it comes to business relationships and business partners, it's kind of the same thing. So you want to make sure that, you're working with someone that also shares similar values, right? And being able to kind of build a relationship to be like, hey, Julia, my material didn't come in time, and this is the issue that we're having. Like, how can we, figure this out together? So I think being able to have those conversations, right, explaining, why maybe some language should be changed in the contract and, how that's going to impact, the team, the project, the community. I think it all kind of lies in the conversation.
Yeah, and I'll build a little bit on what Misha's saying. Confidence is a big part. It's a big asset when you're coming into contract negotiations. And it can be a challenge if you're female, if you're suffering, a lot of females honestly suffer from imposter syndrome, right? Especially when starting out. I think, everybody has kind of a shade of gray of that, especially when you're heading into your first contract negotiation, for example. And so, sometimes you have to just kind of, summon that confidence, which you may not feel like you have the authority to summon immediately. So how do you do that? Well, women are really good preparers. Women are really good at doing homework, and that's what you often need to summon is your ability to crack open all of the preparation homework that you can do the week before and study up and know all your crossed T's and your dotted I's before you walk in that room. And if you need to do that to really bring that baseline of confidence to the front, do it.
And I'll also chime in and say that highlighting like your skills, right, your expertise and your experience on successful projects.
Great. And the next question, how do you deal with male prejudice within your own employees?
I'm happy to answer that one first. I think again, this power of communication and conversation. I think it starts with education and kind of creating and setting the stage of kind of what the culture of the company is, right? How we're going to be the ones that are going to be changing this trajectory. So I think kind of just the repeated education. There's a saying that you have to share something 7 times before it's heard for the first time. So I think, yeah, just the repeated education and kind of being the change in the industry. So we have goals, right, that we want to accomplish, and it's kind of the same kind of concept as making sure that the people on your team are sharing those same values, right, that you're living out, and ensuring that they're going to be able to live the day to day based on the values of the company, and really live that and breathe that and kind of share that with people that are coming in new. I see some head nods over there, so I'll let my co-panelists add some comments there.
I agree.
Go
Go
ahead,
ahead.
Q. Yeah, thanks, Q. So, yeah, I mean, I can't nod my head vigorously enough around sticking to your core values, right? You know, you're working through an organization, and you know, if you have a diverse organization of you know, whether it's gender, ethnicity, age, right? You're going to have to process, you know, all types of messages that come your way. And, you know, you really have to sometimes step aside from yourself, right? And process the message as a leader. And the best way to do that is to always go back to your company's core values, right? Because if your core values are set correctly, they will be kind of your guardrails, right? To address as a leader, you know, your team. Our company's core values, we have 3. They're transparency, collaboration, and learning and growing, right? And like Misha says, it takes 7 times, but I'll say that we probably repeat it 700 times in the course of a month, right? If we go back, transparency, collaboration, learning and growing. This is what we're about. This is how we do it. Is it, are we being transparent? Are we being collaborative around it? Are we, you know, giving our team a chance to learn and grow? You know, if there are any prejudices that come up, right, you can redirect those in the right way if you stick to your core values.
Hugh, do you have anything to add?
I mean, they said it. I agree. It starts with, you know, just building that culture in your company with your team. And we have a small team, and so it's kind of it hasn't really been a challenge for us. More challenging is like to take our culture outside, right? When we're working with people, because we are a minority woman-owned firm. So, but I think it starts within the culture within the team. And our team is small, so it's easy for us to do that.
Awesome, thank you. And Juliana, I love those core values. I'm already over here taking notes myself, so. Okay, next question. Have you ever had any issues with male contractors who are your peers? And Q, why don't you kick us off this time?
Of course. That answer is a definite yes. I've been on, you know, site pre-bid site walks, or site walks with where I've invited like probably 2 of my team members as well as myself, and it's probably just a small group, because we're environmental, so we're like the first section, like the planning section, and I've often had, you know, other firms will direct their questions to like someone else on my team, not realizing that I'm the consultant lead, I'm the environmental lead, you know, and then, you know, just asserting, just letting them know, like, this is the lead, this is my team, but in a way that's not really like raising my hand, like, this is me, because, you know, my team is qualified as well. So sometimes I will step back and let them take the lead. But often, just because I'm often the only Black woman on that job walk or that site, I get that a lot, you know.
Juliana, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, over the course of, you know, the past many years I've been in business, I've lost count of, kind of surprising maybe, but I've lost count of how many times I've been referred to as, oh, the girl. the girl. And it's you know, I've never really come out and said, you know, no, I'm not just, you know, I'm you know, blah 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 who I am. I actually use that surprisingly as a strategic advantage. You know, if someone's calling you out, you know, she's the girl that makes nameplates, you know, we can kind of write her off because she's going to be doing her cute little thing in the corner. And when you realize that folks see you that way and they just see you as the girl, they're kind of counting you out. It gives you a lot of room to do what I was saying earlier, to do the preparedness, to do your homework, and to do it quietly, kind of in the corner, right? So that when it is time to strike and it is time to win that project and it is time to show your clients that you know your business, you realize that some of your male competitors, they didn't even see you as competition, and that's kind of the best place you want to be in a way. So you know, it will happen to potentially anybody who's starting out. You may be written off, and sometimes, you know, that can be taken to your advantage, right? Let them write you off. Let them see you as what's called a dark horse, right? A dark horse is the horse in the race that nobody is really betting on because they don't think they're a competitor. But sometimes the dark horse can win.
Thank you, Juliana. Yeah, I like that piece of advice there on how to use it for your advantage.
Yeah, I agree. I think just gonna piggyback a little bit off both of you all is I think too, for me, my dad founded the company, so there's like another layer as well, like not only like the woman aspect and, you know, being the girl on site, but really finding, I think, those people who are your cheerleaders. Honestly, Q is one of the biggest cheerleaders, I think, in our industry. Is she'll really highlight, right, like, you know, who you are and what you're doing. And in every company, you're going to find that kind of cheerleader who's going to outweigh, you know, the negative or, you know, the pushbacks or the doubts. So yes, there are a lot of negatives, but at the same time, there's so many positives, honestly, in our industry. Actually, my director of sales, she says, you know, this construction industry is so different than like tech and like manufacturing, because it's like everyone is so nice. Everyone is so willing to help out and like they want to see you succeed. So yes, there are going to be those people that don't want to see your light and want to dim that light and don't even know you have that light. But there's also so many people that are going to want to pull you up and really help you shine and really showcase like who you are and the badass things that you're doing, right? Because it's really powerful. And yeah, there are always going to be those people.
Okay. So this next question, I feel like we did cover this a little bit, but maybe here we can get a little bit more concrete with some examples. And then sort of just like how you manage it internally, almost like the self-care aspect of it. Like, how do you process it? So what have you seen in the workplace that female craftswomen deal with on the job site? And how have you managed that issue? And this one I think is good for those on the call who are just wanting to start out, like they're wanting to break into it. What are some kind of examples of things that they, you know, might come across?
So I can start that. I'm just going to be honest. You know, I started in the front office. I started my company in the front office. I have not walked the shoes of a female on the job site, and I'm not going to attempt to you know, put any words to what that experience is. I know, you know, from being in the front office, we don't still in this industry work with a lot of females in the field. You know, of course, I'm sure that the three of us panelists would love to see that change. I think that we've seen a lot of change in the front office. There's been a fair amount of movement, significant movement. So yeah, I think that, you know, there are some women that have moved from the job site, from the field to being business owners, and we need to hold, we need to hold them up like champions. Those are rare unicorn businesses that we need to support. I know of at least one, and whatever we can do to continue to support that movement, we're here for them.
And I'll add, because that was my journey of coming from the field, and then starting my firm, which is, it's not an easy road, I'll say that, but I think honing your craft and educating yourself and knowing, your craft, right? Like whatever that services is. For us, it's environmental services. We don't even see a lot of African American, Afro-Latina women in the field of environmental, let alone like owning their own or starting their own firm. I will say, coming from the field, you do have an advantage because you're creating those relationships. And so people kind of already know you, and they already are kind of like familiar with your character, your work ethic, and you've built those relationships, right? However, being a startup, you deal with a lot of challenges of just actually creating the company on the business side, not even like contracts, just like the regular, administrative side of creating a business, which can be challenging. So I would say like finding mentors in the industry, in business and in your industry as well, industry specific, and just don't give up, like keep going, because you will have those days where you feel very tired, going to sleep with 1,000 emails, waking up with 2,000 emails, but it can be rewarding too, especially when you have your team and, you guys have a amazing project that you're proud of. Like for my team, we will, after COVID, we went to the community center of East Palo Alto, which is where a lot of my team is from. And we did complimentary fit testing, and we passed out masks, and, we passed out donuts, and we educated them on, properly wearing their masks, right? And why it's important why fit testing was so important. Anyway, so like things like that, it's like rewarding, right? And it's like building that culture that we were talking about earlier. But you will have those days, just to get back to the question, where it's not easy. But I just say perseverance, that's what you need.
And I also want to just piggyback. I also haven't, walked the walk and, been in the shoes similar to Juliana. But I know that there are organizations out there such as Rising Sun, who like right now they have a cohort of 40 women who they are, developing in construction training. So we've partnered with them, for example, and we bring on women and, just people from their organization because they really put the effort to develop and mentor people that are interested in this industry. And so there are a lot of opportunities and ways, right, that we can, build this number and grow this number. And I think it starts with the education and, people like Rising Sun is like a great example, right? There's other, opportunities like that where we can collaborate, right? And together we can really, make the shift. And kudos to those like Q who really have been able to be that push, right? And she's like a great example for so many in the industry. So I love that.
Thank you. And I'm going to take a moment here to actually stop sharing my screen so that we can see you guys better as you're speaking. Okay, so we're going to switch gears a little bit here and kind of address some of the things that have made you successful and what your challenges have been. So this next one is, how important is it to participate in industry peer groups, associations, or networks?
Yeah, I think I can start with that one. I think that's so important. I think I mentioned, right, collaborating is how we're going to be able to get further, faster, and stronger together. So for me, I'm involved with a few different organizations, which I feel have really been valuable and really help like we really want to see you succeed. One of them is going to be WCOE. That's the Women Construction Owners and Executives Group. I'm actually the president of California this year, and we're going to be having a really big conference in Napa in June. So I highly recommend you all come to that. But something we did last year is we actually invited a bunch of different trade partners such as NAWIC, YOPS, AGC, Build California, right, to come together to really show what we can do together. So I recommend, I know it's overwhelming sometimes. There's so many different things out there. There's so many events happening. I don't know, you got to ask Q because she's at literally all of them. So show up, network, and really follow up. I think that's like that third part is like the key, is because you can go to all these events and show up, but really building those relationships and finding those people that you really vibe with and your values are in sync, right? People you can see yourself doing business with and promoting because you have the same values, I think is key. And you meet those people at all these, trade partners and networking events. So yeah, I encourage. I know it's overwhelming and stressful sometimes, but go and have fun. Just make a small goal, maybe meeting 2 to 3 people and, making sure you follow up with them. You never know who you're going to meet.
And I would just piggyback off of that and say they're really good for different various reasons, right? So personal development, sometimes there's platforms like these, right? And then in person, you get to that personal development, what you need, whatever that gap is missing. Networking, obviously, collaborating with people. And then you have that support, right? From the relationships that you're building. And then you also have that advocacy and representation. So when an opportunity does arise, possibly, you already have that established connection. And then that builds like credibility, right? Because they're getting to know you. So I think overall participating in all those type of associations is good. Like there's so many different ones, like Nisha just said. But yeah, you got to pick and choose because it's like every day of the week is like something. So you want to be strategic, but also to just getting that face to face to get to know your peers.
I'd say that if you want to follow anybody who really is fearless about putting themselves out there, it is Q. She is at a lot of events, and we all love her because she's not just advocating for herself. She really advocates for all of us. But I'll say one more point around these peer groups. You have formal and you have informal peer groups. I think Misha and Q have talked about the importance and value of these formal peer groups, but seeing each other is Misha and Q, and there's a few other business owners, we get together for lunch whenever we can. We struggle to find time within our schedule, but that's an example of an informal peer group that that I really count on and rely on. So I feel like there's kind of a blossoming in the last 10 years of women that have kind of organically found each other, and it can be really lonely, right? I want to point that out to those that are either maybe in the middle of their career or just starting their career. It's okay to name that fact that it can be lonely, and it's okay to name that and say that, hey, I really appreciate that I can text Misha and Q and say, listen, I can't make lunch this week because I had a payroll issue. Can we just sort this out? Can we maybe do it next month? And for them to just text back and say, I understand. We've been there, and you're not alone in this. Even the informal peer groups are something to reach out to and to hold close, because that's how we get there to the next day.
Thank you.
Agreed.
And how have regulatory changes impacted your business? Juliana, you want to start us off?
Sure. Yeah, I'll start off with that.
Go up, so.
So, I'll say that I think we understand regulations. Regulations are in place for a reason. But with regulation, the flip side of regulation is you need to track everything that you're being regulated around, right? And tracking then means that you need a very robust way to administer the tracking, right? So a lot of times, you know, regulations and laws and things get passed, and you know, we see it, and you know, from kind of an instinctual place, we're like, okay, we understand why one needs to regulate this activity. What often gets lost is, well, okay, on the backside, you know, when you're regulating it, somebody within our company needs to track, you know, what we're doing to ensure that we comply with regulation. And, you know, we each have our craft, right? I'm a sign maker. And so ideally we're spending a lot of time, I'm spending time just on my craft, how to make signs and how to make signs beautiful and how to install them. But more and more, we're finding ourselves, or at least I'm finding myself, an administrator, right? We're doing a lot of tracking. We're doing a lot of ensuring that we're meeting and we're being compliant and we're following up on, you know, what we need to be doing to follow regulations. It's tough. I'm you know, kind of short story is it's really tough. There are regulatory changes. As a business owner, the more we're kind of drawn away from our craft to ensure that we're keeping up with regulations. It's not really what gets us going, right? It's not what makes us feel great. We know we have to do it, but it's tough. It's one of those things that makes business ownership very tough these days.
And I would say regulatory changes both bring challenges and also, well, it can be good and bad, right? Because it also gives you room to grow, to be more innovative, to be adaptable, right? And to be the first. So it just depends. Sometimes it can be challenging, but then in other cases, it can create opportunity.
Yeah, I'll have to piggyback off of the both of them, and just kind of, you're constantly having to navigate the change, right? And how to lead that team to be able to figure out the change. I have this wave ring on my finger because it's like constantly riding the wave, right? And just figuring out like what's next and how to manage this and how to navigate it. And as Q said, sometimes it could be a great opportunity, and sometimes you're like, okay, how are we going to figure this out, right? But you know, I think back to like the conversations, the collaboration, and really leaning into your team. I mean, I think that's been really big for us, is some of the things that they come up with and their innovative ideas, right, are things that I would have never even thought about. So leaning into that team and, you know, coming together to figure it out is so powerful.
Awesome, thank you. And Misha, I see somebody in the chat would like a link to the event you mentioned. If you get a chance, can you go ahead and post?
Yeah, I'll drop it in the chat right now.
Awesome. And then I think this will be our last question from us. So we'll finish it off with this one, and then we will hop into attendee questions. So what are some key points you feel a woman needs to consider when wanting to start up a construction-oriented business? And what message do you want to send to our attendees today?
I can start with that. I would say that really your network is your net worth. I think this is so key, is really start to, you know, chat with people, message people, show up to the events, and just ask the questions. People are so open to sharing and giving advice, and, you know, sharing what didn't work, what did work. So be curious, and yeah, just don't hesitate to reach out. We're always happy to help when we can.
And I would say just when you join the organizations, that's a real big support. And within those organizations, they have like, you know, education, mentorship, even, you know, the Meet the Primes, where you can actually, like, whatever you're specializing in, they can connect you with that person, that stakeholder or its decision maker, right? So I would say like being active with besides what Misha said, because that's important too, is just getting a part of the organization. And normally, like if you're a woman-owned business or, you know, a minority-owned business, you are getting certified, so you have that community, you know. And so once you get certified and you're in that community, even if you're a local business, right, you have that community. So it's not hard to find that community. But if you have questions, obviously always feel free to reach out and ask.
Great.
Um,
Oh, anything else to add before I jump to?
Yeah, I was going to add just one more thing too. Exactly what Misha and Q said. Your network is really everything. And the one thing I would add is kind of going back to the regulatory question we were chatting about just previously, is that it's a very, especially government contracting, it's pretty regulated, I feel. I mean, it's been the only industry I've been in, so I don't have a lot to compare and contrast, but I do feel like there's a fair amount of compliance that you really need to look out for. So for a woman that's, starting up a construction oriented business, do understand that, right? You are going to need to have your front office in well working order, because the paperwork, really, I'll just say it's the paperwork and the emails. It's no joke, right? There's a lot to really watch out for. And you need to just kind of come in with eyes wide open around that fact. You will be doing your craft, your chosen craft, but you will also be doing a fair amount of compliance, right? Surrounding your craft.
All right, so we are going to hop to an attendee question. As a new business, should I consider starting as a subcontractor in government contracting before bidding as a prime contractor independently?
For me, I would say, I mean, everybody's journey is their journey, but you want to know the contracting or the partnership process, right? So I think subcontracting would be the best way to go before you just jump in there and be a prime and be responsible for everyone for that project and every other firm on that project if that's your first project, which is, a heavy lift, can be.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a good route to take. And and depending on your particular craft or trade, if it's a very crowded space or if it's not so crowded of a space, right? If it's a very crowded space, and you have a lot of potential companies that you could sub with or be a subcontractor to. To the previous points, do a lot of networking, go out and meet a lot of people, because you'll want to validate that, who you're working with are good players, right? If it's a very crowded space, you have room for very good players and you have room for, unfortunately, not so good players. So the more you network and the more you're kind of talking to other industry peers, those good players ideally will bubble to the surface, right? And of course, that's who you want to do your partnerships with or your subcontracting with.
Yeah, I think kind of just piggybacking to like when you want to make friends, right? When you're looking for, let's say you move somewhere new, right? And you're looking for your new set of friends. It's going to take some time to meet with them, connect with them, have coffee with them, right? To figure out if this is the right fit. And for us, we're a subcontractor. And even as we're growing, we're building new partnerships, right? With like different also subcontractors, so we can bid on bigger projects together, right? And eventually take on those contracts that we may have been able to as a prime, but with collaboration with other, partners in the community.
Excellent. Yeah, and I saw James posted in the chat. We agree. Yeah, this is something we talk to clients a lot about, at least understanding the difference and the potential positives out of starting as a subcontractor versus a prime. Oftentimes, we see those big prime contracts and it's easy to see the dollar signs and be excited to go after those, but it really can be a great entryway into the door to start as a sub, and just understanding how that process works, because that process is a little bit different than contracting as a prime, right? And the people that you need to network are actually the prime contractors, not the government agencies, if you're looking to start as a sub. So yeah, we agree. It's a great starting place, or can be. Okay. Let's see. Okay. When and why did you decide to start your own business or being a business owner instead of working for a company? How did you feel and what did you do when things were not working out for your business, especially when you were starting up?
Do you go? Go.
Well, I would say for me, I was in the field. I was working as a contractor for different companies, and they were like recruiting me. And I just seen the value in starting a business as a minority woman-owned business, because it was like it was a lane that was very narrow. It wasn't a lot of competition in that area. But I did not know, even though I had a business before, I didn't know, because this is more of a, regulated, like Juliana was mentioning with federal contracting is highly regulated. And in environmental, it's just the industry itself. We have 35 air quality departments within California, right? Bay Area Air Quality is for the Bay Area. So our paperwork has to be bulletproof. So one of the things I didn't take into account was all of the regulatory stuff that I had to deal with, besides, just being a business owner, creating policy, creating HR department, creating culture, right? All those different things. So I think for someone who's looking to take that step, I think that do a little bit more research to see what that actually means, what that looks like, right? Because I don't think that I did, because I was like, oh, I come from an entrepreneur background, so I just assumed, you have a business, it's like running any other business. But these, when you're dealing with state contracting and state certification and federal contracting and federal certifications, it is a little different road.
I think mine is a little bit unique because I kind of accidentally got into this industry. I started off in the cosmetology industry and I got into a really bad car accident in 2014. So everything kind of shifted for me. And at that time, I stepped in thinking I'm going to be doing this part-time while I figure out what's my next step and my next move. But I ended up realizing, one, how much that I could actually help build this thing with my dad and create opportunity for people that don't really exist in the space. I noticed that right away, just from the meetings I would go to with my dad and the project managers. I would just look around and no one really looked like me. So I said, okay, let's make this shift. And thank goodness for Google, honestly, because I didn't know anything in construction. I mean, I came from the beauty world, right? So what the heck is the RFI, is COI, ITB? So I'm just writing everything down and Googling and asking so many questions. Being curious, I think, is the best thing to do, because even when you ask a silly question, the person that's sharing that answer is kind of relearning it, right? And being able to remember, and it's like a lesson for them in the same sense too. So nothing is too silly. So always ask, be curious, and use our resources. I feel like we're literally in one of the luckiest times to be alive with Google and AI and just the access that we have with these things, right? It's like incredible. So utilize that to your benefit.
Thank you. Okay, next question is around examples of mentorship. So it says, for the panelists, are you able to provide specific examples of where a mentor took you under their wing to support you?
Well, I can say yes. I have so many amazing women who I call on often, probably more than I should, I don't know, but I call on them often today, right? Like if I'm dealing with something or just trying to get a different perspective or different vantage point. Even, one of the women, in my women business, I'm a certified WBE with WeBank, and the president, Dr. Janice Green, like I will call her, I have her cell phone. I will call her and be like, Dr. Green, whatever the situation is. And even like some of the older women who have been doing it successfully globally, I'll be like, what is the best advice you give me? And it could be in an informal setting, like we could be like having lunch or out to dinner or something. But so I think that it's very important to have a mentor. I think many mentors, right? Not even just, someone in your industry or someone who's a successful business person. I think many mentors can benefit us as women-owned businesses because we deal with so many different things. Like, it's not one thing that I can just put my finger on right now and say, this stands out, because there's so many different things.
Yeah, I'll say
I
that
see us.
going back to, your informal and formal peer groups, right? These informal and formal peer groups that I either form or join or are a part of, they're really my de facto board of directors. I don't have a board of directors for my company, but I have many board of directors, and I count my board of directors as these informal and formal peer groups. And these mentors, like Q is saying, I have mentors that are, maybe 20 years older than me or 20 years younger than me. Right. It's you really can't look at your mentor as somebody who's necessarily, more established, age wise, or even in their career. I'm constantly learning from, I'd say a whole generation younger than me. I see them as mentors as well. And you get them through, right, the networking. It's kind of the theme, the networking, the informal peer groups, getting out there, shaking hands, and, forging relationships as you're out there.
I agree. And just to piggyback off of both Q and Juliana, just asking. I think when I was looking for kind of my first mentor, it was like the peak of COVID. So I was like, emailing, LinkedIn messaging, and, people really want to help. So I like 3 people that really, I think, opened up my eyes to a lot of things that I didn't even know existed were Shauna Alvarado, Jean Bjork, and Kara Herman. Like they jumped in and were like, yeah, anything you need. I remember meeting with Shauna like sometimes twice a week for coffee and just being like, oh my God, how do I like navigate this? What did you do in the past? Right. And I remember jumping on Zoom calls. Like I didn't know what I was doing. Right. I was just asking. And no one really knows what they're doing. So like, just remember that. Right. And like ask people, and you're going to find those people that are going to want to help you and see you succeed. And then you become that mentor for people and eventually. So it's just this whole like circle. And the more we can share and like give our knowledge and give our, expertise of what's worked and what hasn't worked to save someone from going through that, it's just the whole community is going to benefit. So it's like a circle of giving and love, it just never ends.
Love that. Okay, so I think we'll ask one more question here. And actually, before I do that, it looks like there's a lot of interest in wanting contact information from the panelists. So just a reminder that we will be sending the slides out to everybody, and there is some contact info in the slides. But also panelists, if you feel comfortable, go ahead and include contact information in the chat. That'd be great. Okay, do you see women and people of color are quitting in your industry? How have you approached retention of high quality employees?
Something I'll just mention is I'm so grateful to say that a lot of the people that have been with us have stayed with us throughout the years, and we're continuously growing. So I have a lot of newer people on our team that have joined us within the past year and a half. And as far as I know, they're loving it. So I think it's just crucial to make sure you're checking in, right? We run our company on EOS. It's an entrepreneur operating system. And with this, we do quarterly check-ins, and everyone meets weekly with their, upper manager, who makes sure that they're coaching them and make sure that they're in the right place. They're everything is going well for them. Something that is key is, I think, a lot of times we're so focused on the work part of things that the human element gets kind of missed, and that's super crucial. And making sure that everyone on our team is in a good space, and if they're not, how do we help them get to that space, right? So that's something that's really key for us, and I think it all goes back to the conversations and the power of communication, right? If I don't ask Julia what's going on, I won't know, right? So being able to actually have that dialogue and checking in and making sure this is the right fit.
I'll just jump in, kind of circling back to, I think the first thing that we said about core values, right? To
Yep.
really make sure that you have good retention, right? You want to hire for your core values. So before we bring people on, hey, these are our core values. We really are looking for growth mindset people. Shout out to Chantel, who said growth mindset is the key for sure. Yeah, we look for people with growth mindset. And so ideally, right, if you're interviewing on the front end for folks that have that share your values, that's very helpful for retention of employees.
Oh, and I agree. We haven't really had any issues with that right now. So right now we have a small team, and I feel like we're just like in honeymoon stage. Like we're all learning together, and I like to say that we have a group of leaders, because in our industry we have to be leaders. Like we're the experts on the job site, right? So I want them to be leaders. I want them to be there. I don't want them to be worried. I want them to be independent leaders and thinkers. So we haven't had that issue, but I will say in the process of bringing on people and onboarding, we do, as Juliana and Misha say, like we want to have those core values, because it's easy to bring someone on, but it's not easy to, from what I hear, it's easy to create something. It's not easy to untangle it, I guess is the right word. But we haven't had that issue. So I just, I think so. The core values is you keep going back to that.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. Thank you to the panelists. I do want to mention that I do see some government agencies in the house today. So not only is this conversation helping out other businesses, but it also is making a difference in the system. The reason why those agencies are here is to hear about your challenges. And so thank you very much. This has been really valuable. There's so many good questions in the chat, and I really wish we could get to them all. If it was up to me, I could chat about this all day. I just think it's so valuable, but fortunately we can't get to everyone's questions, although our panelists have been very kind in sharing their contact information. I know that I'm definitely open to receiving emails if I missed a question, and I think the panelists are open to that as well, so please don't hesitate to reach out. That's what all this was about, really. One of the main factors talked about is having this village and support and mentorship, right? So please reach out to glean more information and take advantage of that. Okay, and one last reminder, I know I've said it throughout, we will send out the slides to everybody and also a link to this recording, and that'll happen within a week today, just to give us a little processing time. Upon leaving the webinar, you'll also receive a link to fill out a feedback survey. And since we are a nonprofit, we're funded via grants with the federal government and state government. Those feedback surveys are really important to us. We do share that information with our funders. We take it to heart. We implement what you say. We really want these to be as helpful as possible for you. So please do take a minute to fill those out. And thank you all so much for your time today. And with that, we will wrap it up.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for having us. Happy WIC Week and Women's Month.
Yeah. Thanks,
I
Misha. Thanks, Q.
This weekend, I just dropped the registration link in the chat as well. It's free, but please register so we know how many tacos to get.
Awesome.
Thank you, everyone.